So it all happened very fast. He basically, the door kind of burst open, and he came in very, just from my perspective, really under the influence of something, drugs or alcohol, because he was very sloppily, like, he looked wasted. He was holding a very large bottle of wine, looked like some sort of like a Magnum bottle of wine, which was kind of spilling all over the place. And as he opened the door, he just, what I remember what he mumbled was, "Get your bitch out of here." And I just remember it all happened very fast, like the door slamming, him saying, "Get your bitch out of here," the wine, that whole, you know, his whole being really frightened me. It almost felt like he was coming towards me from my perspective. Whether he was coming towards me or not, it scared me. And I just ran out past him.
You said Mr. Depp appeared to be either drunk or high. Is that correct?
He seemed to be intoxicated.
Okay. Is that different than drunk?
No, I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, he definitely seemed like he was under the influence of something.
And on May 21st, 2016, how was Mr. Depp's demeanor different?
He was, it was much more sloppy and all over the place and frightening and yeah, combative, you know, felt very angry. He felt angry and yeah.
And when you say combative, what was combative specifically about his demeanor?
Just the way he burst through the room, just very forcefully, and rushed in very quickly to the point that it made me want to get past him and run out very quickly. Like, it wasn't an invite. It was very, yeah, it was intense.
Okay. So Mr. Depp comes through the door to Penthouse 5, and you hear him say something to the effect of, "Get your bitch out of here," correct? Mm-hmm. And then you ran out immediately thereafter?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Depp spill any wine in Penthouse 5 before you ran out?
Yes.
How much wine did you see him spill?
I don't remember.
A lot? The entire bottle?
Not the entire bottle. What I remember was it was flailing, and there was definitely wine that was coming out.
Would you say that being sloppy is different than being combative?
Yeah, I would say sloppy and combative are two different things.
And it's your testimony that Mr. Depp was, on May 21st, 2016, both combative and sloppy, correct?
Yeah, I would describe it that there was a little bit of both. Yes, but combative and sloppy.
Was he more sloppy than he was combative?
It felt more combative than sloppy.
And just to clarify, the only thing that was combative was the words he was speaking?
No, it was completely the way he entered into the room, rushed in, his energy, the way it felt like he was coming after me, like he almost felt like, from where I was standing, it felt like he was charging towards me, and I was scared, and it felt, yeah, combative. It felt, I'm trying to look for another word that can describe what I felt, but it was, you know, it was scary. My heart was beating really fast, very quickly, and I was freaked out.
Okay, so after you exchanged some text messages with Ms. Pennington, you came out of your hiding spot and then went to Ms. Pennington and Mr. Drew's penthouse. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So who was in Penthouse 1 when you got out of the hiding spot and came to Penthouse 1?
I mean, it was Josh, Raquel, Amber, and I were the people that were at some point in there during that time.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you saw Ms. Heard after this incident?
I remember seeing her after that incident, and it was in that apartment.
In Penthouse 1?
Correct.
So the first time you saw Ms. Heard after this incident on May 21st, 2016 was in Penthouse 1. What do you recall seeing, the first thing you saw when you saw Ms. Heard?
I I just remember she looked really upset and disheveled, and her hair was a mess, and she had a swollen face. Red. She had a red, swollen face.
Okay. Had you ever seen Ms. Heard cry before May 21st, 2016?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember.
Okay. What side of her face was swollen?
I think it was her right side of her face.
Do you have an independent recollection that it was the right side of her face that was swollen?
I'm taking myself back there and trying to remember like where I was standing versus, you know what I mean? I think it was, yeah, I think looking at her, it was on my left and her right side.
Okay. So let's talk about her hair seemed disheveled. Is that what you said? Her hair was disheveled? Mm-hmm. Was she crying?
Yeah, there was definitely tears.
Was she animated?
Yeah, she was visibly really upset.
Okay. So visibly very upset means what? She was crying? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what else?
Tears, sadness, felt like confusion, felt like those were the main things.
Would you describe? What did Mr. Drew say, if anything?
I don't remember him saying what he said. I think everybody was just shaken up.
So soon after you went into Penthouse 1, you remember some police officers coming to
I
Penthouse 1.
remember, yeah, I remember there was police officers in the hallway.
Okay. Was Ms. Heard icing her face after the incident, but before the police arrived?
I think so.
Who gave her the ice?
I don't remember.
So you were in Penthouse 1 when the police came. How do you know that they came? What did you hear? What did you see?
Because they said the police are here. So I
Who
remember.
said that?
I don't remember. Again, this is a very long time ago, so specific details are going to be really hard for me to remember.
Okay.
I just knowing that police were there in the hallway, 2 of them.
And in February, when you lived at the penthouse for a few weeks, you didn't hear or see any abuse by Mr. Depp towards Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
And did you go to Amber and Johnny's penthouse thereafter, or where did you go next?
So I just remember at some point ending up, yes, at some point we were in their penthouse afterwards, in Johnny and Amber's. At some point we went over there.
And did you go over there, you think, after the police came?
It was after the first 2 police officers came.
Okay. Do you remember glass on the floor?
At this point in time, I don't remember what I saw. I don't remember if it was cleaned up by the time I got there or if there was glass on the floor when I walked in.
Do you recall seeing wine spilled?
I recall seeing wine spilled in the hallway, like a lot of wine spilled in the hallway.
When do you recall seeing the wine spilled in the hallway?
At some point in the night, maybe after, before. I recall, I don't remember specifically, but I remember seeing wine spilled in the hallway. I remember that being one of the things that I saw that was part of the destruction of whatever happened.
Okay, so the police come, and you stayed in Penthouse 1.
Correct.
Okay. It was after the police officers left that you went to Penthouse 3, correct, where Amber and Johnny lived?
Correct.
Recall seeing wine spilled in the hallway?
I remember seeing wine spilled in the hallway, yeah.
Okay. And you saw the wine after the police officers came, correct?
I think so.
Did Miss Pennington take any photographs of the scene?
I remember Raquel taking photographs of Amber's face.
Okay. And now going to your description of Miss Heard's face, you said it was the right side of her face. You said it was, what, swollen and red? What else?
Correct. Yeah, it was swollen and red.
Was any part of her face more swollen than others?
It was around her eye.
Had bruising developed already?
No, it was red and swollen.
Okay. So you did not see any bruising on Miss Heard's face the evening of May 21st, 2016, correct?
I saw a red, swollen, puffy face.
Okay. And just on the right side, correct?
Correct.
But wasn't it your testimony, Ms. Mars, that you were inside penthouse 1 when the first police officers came to the scene?
Correct.
Okay. And how much time do you estimate they spent in the penthouses?
I don't remember. The second group of officers, there was 2 sets of officers that came. The second set of officers that I actually was in the apartment in PH3, I think it was.
Did you hear about either Ms. Heard, Mr. Drew, or Ms. Pennington cleaning anything that Mr. Depp allegedly destroyed?
I don't remember, but I do remember that I'm pretty sure that Josh was helping to clean up before I got into I remember that knowing that the place was cleaned up before I entered in there.
Before you entered into where?
Into the main apartment.
So you recall Josh Drew cleaning up before you entered penthouse 3. What was he cleaning up exactly?
I just remember by the time that I had gotten into that apartment that someone had cleaned up the glass and the wine that was on the floor.
Do you recall who told you that penthouse 3 had been cleaned up?
No one specifically told me. It was what I was expressing is that it was cleaned up before I got there for the most part. I just remember that for the most part. From what I don't remember.
To clarify, Ms. Mars, when you came into penthouse 3, after the police officers, the first set of police officers came and left, you did not see silver candlesticks, candelabra sticks, broken on the floor, baskets of fruit that had been on the kitchen island, fruit everywhere, baskets on the ground, containers holding the spoons and forks, kitchen utensils spilled, a lamp, a little statue thing, broken in penthouse 5. I'm sorry, penthouse 3.
Now that I'm reading this, I'm sort of remembering that there was like some stuff that had like something that had been broken, like a little like the statue thing kind of sounds familiar to me now that I'm reading this, but again, I don't remember when I walked in and I don't remember this being on the floor. Okay. I don't remember seeing.
Okay. So you don't remember seeing it?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember. But again, as I'm reading this statue, when I see the statue, there's something that's like, oh, maybe, yeah, I feel like I remember there was some things that were broken, but I don't specifically remember what they were.
You did not witness firsthand?
I didn't
what?
firsthand anything. I didn't witness firsthand Johnny abusing Amber.
But do you recall testifying to that effect, that Johnny charged at you and then you were scared?
He charged towards me, and I was scared. I ran past him.
You didn't run past him because he told everyone in that penthouse to get out of his penthouse?
I ran past him because he ran into the unit, and it scared the shit out of me because he was wasted and screaming. So that's why I ran out. If there's a grown-ass man coming at you and saying, get your bitch out of here, and swaying a magnum-sized bottle of wine, I'm sure, I don't know what anyone do. I can't say what anyone do, but I ran out.
And will you just remind us what side of Miss Heard's face you recall the marks being on May 21st, 2016?
The right side of her face.
Do you feel indebted to Miss Heard in any way?
No.
Have you ever done Miss Heard's makeup?
No.
You testified earlier today that Miss Heard often, in the times you saw her, would not be wearing makeup. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is it possible in some of those times that she was wearing the type of makeup we ladies sometimes use to not appear as though we're wearing makeup?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell whether or not she was wearing basic concealer or foundation?
Correct.
Talk to me about the loud noises. What did you hear?
Yeah, just screaming, yelling, doors slamming, commotion.
Could you tell whether the screaming and the yelling was a male voice or a female voice?
From what I can remember, male.
And could you tell where the screaming and the yelling was coming from?
It felt like it was started farther down the hallway, and then it was coming like closer. So essentially, I mean, I don't know, but it could have been the hallway.
And so after you start hearing the screaming and the yelling and the door slamming and the commotion, you testify that Mr. Drew got up and went to the door?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What did Mr. Drew do?
He was kind of pacing by the door and looking through the peephole.
And what happened next?
And then the door like burst open, and Johnny came charging in and screamed, again holding the magnum-sized bottle of wine, flailing it around, looked intoxicated, kind of stumbling, and screamed, "Get your bitch out of here," as he ran in my direction. And I was scared. It was very frightening and just scary and unexpected. And so I just darted out past him and ran up towards the pool gym area and hid there.
Prior to the night of May 21, 2016, had a man ever charged at you holding a magnum bottle of wine, screaming profanities?
Objection.
And what was your reaction to this event when it happened on May 21, 2016?
Fear.
Besides the screaming and the door slamming and the wine waving, do you recall anything else about Mr. Depp's actions that evening? During that moment, I guess I should say.
There's erratic. I would describe it as erratic behavior.
Was anyone else with Mr. Depp when he charged into Penthouse 5?
Behind him were two men.
What about Ms. Heard?
No.
What about Ms. Pennington?
No.
So you testified that after Mr. Depp burst into the apartment and started charging towards you, that you darted out and hid in, I believe it's a communal exercise area, is that correct?
Yeah. I darted out and went up the stairs and hid somewhere over by there.
Why did you hide?
Because I was scared.
Sorry, say again. Why did you hide?
Because I was scared.
What were you scared of?
I just didn't know what he would do. I didn't know what he would do.
And the he there is who?
Johnny.
What were you thinking when you were hiding in the communal exercise area?
I don't remember. Just that I just remember being scared and not wanting to leave that area until I was clear that I wasn't going to be attacked.
And at some point, did you leave the area?
Yes.
And what prompted you to leave the area?
A text with Raquel, just telling her to come to her and Josh's apartment.
And did you do as Ms. Pennington said and go to her and Josh's apartment?
Yes.
Sitting here today, do you remember what you were thinking as you were sort of coming out of your hiding spot and walking towards the penthouses again?
I think the whole thing was just bizarre, really frightening and bizarre to me. I don't specifically remember what I was thinking other than, like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened, you know? And is he gone? Maybe I was thinking that. I don't remember specifically.
And when you say, is he gone, who's the he you're referring to there?
Johnny.
When you got to Miss Pennington's and Mr. Drew's penthouse, who'd you see? Who was there?
I don't remember who was specifically there when I first walked in, but throughout the time being in there in that moment, definitely Amber, Raquel, and Josh. And maybe, like, just by peeping into the hallway, one of the police officers.
When you saw Miss Heard after you came back down from your hiding spot and you're in Mr. Drew's and Miss Pennington's apartment, how did she look?
She looked frazzled and just completely disheveled. Her hair was all over the place. She had a swollen face, looked like she had been crying, and yeah.
Do you think the swollen face was a result of her having been crying?
No.
What do you think it was a result of?
It looked like she'd been, like, hit in some way. Like, it was not from crying. She had markings on her face.
Were the marks that you saw on Miss Heard's face after you came down from your hiding spot present when you had been hanging out with her earlier in the day?
No.
You testified earlier today that you witnessed some, I believe it was Miss Pennington or Mr. Drew, take some photos of Miss Heard's face. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I'd like to mark what will be Mars Exhibit 13. Miss Mars, as the court reporter hands you Exhibit 13, I'll represent to you that these were some photos taken on the night of May 21st, 2016. So if you turn to the second photo in the set, do you recognize the person in this photograph?
Yes.
Who is it?
Amber.
And do you see any marks on her face in this photograph?
Yes.
And do these marks look like the marks that you saw in person on her face on the evening of March 21, 2016?
Yes.
And just to clarify, these marks were not on her face when you saw Miss Heard earlier that same afternoon and were helping Miss Pennington make beads.
Correct.
There are other photos in this set. Why don't we turn back to the first one? Some broken frames on a bed. Do you know what this picture is of?
Yeah, I mean, this is Amber and Johnny's bed, and there's photographs on it.
So I take it that you've seen Amber and Johnny's bedroom before.
Yes.
Do you recall whether you went into Mr. Depp's and Miss Heard's bedroom that night?
No.
No, you don't recall, or no, you didn't?
No, I don't recall.
The next photo on the set is the picture of Miss Heard. Just after that, there's a photo, you're with me, of what appears to be a hallway. Mm-hmm. Are you with me?
Yes.
Do you recognize what this is an image of?
Yes.
What is it an image of?
It's the hallway between all the penthouse apartments.
So you've been on this hallway many times?
Yes.
Do you see the sort of red staining on the right-hand corner of the page?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing that red staining the night of May 21, 2016?
Yes.
And what was it?
It was wine.
So you saw that staining on the night of May 21, 2016?
Yes.
Do you recall whether it was there when you arrived in the afternoon?
I don't remember seeing it, no.
So when was the first time you remember seeing it?
I think when I came out of my hiding spot and came downstairs back into Raquel and Josh's apartment.
But you didn't see the wine get spilled?
Not this, no.
You saw other wine get spilled?
I saw, yeah, as he was, and when he came in the apartment, when he was flailing the wine.
And the he there is?
Johnny.
Then the last photo in this set appears to be of some picture frames hanging on a wall. Do you see that?
Yes. I think it's in Amber and Johnny's apartment, I think. But again, I don't remember if it's in her studio. I don't know.
Do you recall seeing this photo in one of the penthouses before?
Yes.
And when you saw it, was it broken?
No.
And what, if anything, do you remember about Miss Pennington's state?
Also, distraught, upset.
You'd been friends with Miss Pennington for many years at that point, correct?
Correct.
Had you ever seen her similarly distraught?
Not similarly, but seen her sad.
But have you ever seen her have the same reaction that she had that evening?
No.
So you also testified that you saw Mr. Drew in his and Miss Pennington's penthouse. What, if anything, do you remember about Mr. Drew's state?
I just remember him being just a grounding energy, just trying to be supportive to Amber and to Raquel, and just really trying to be like the man in the situation that was gonna like really be grounded amongst like women that were sort of like frightened and sort of a little more frantic. He was very grounded and very like clear, and I remember like feeling safe with him. Like he was, it was like protection.
You testified earlier today that, quote, there are some things that I really remember and some things that are a little shady, end quote. Which bucket do the marks that you saw on Miss Heard's face on the evening of May 21, 2016 fall into? The things that were a little shady, or the things that you really remember?
That I really remember.
All right. Your next witness?
Witness, Your Honor, is Melanie Iglesias, and that is also by video. And I will say that that begins with Ms. Vasquez questioning first, and then,
Okay.
then I come back.
All right. And can you spell that last name just for the court
It's
order?
Inglessis.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Melanie Iglesias.
And Ms. Iglesias, what
Whoops,
is your
it's
occupation?
me first.
I'm a makeup artist.
And
Thank
you,
you.
in fact, are a professional makeup artist, correct?
Correct.
When did you first meet Amber Heard?
April 2015.
And what was the occasion?
Tribeca Film Festival in New York.
And were you providing makeup services for her on that occasion?
Correct.
Okay. And did you become friends with Amber Heard after that?
I did.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 7. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes. I recall seeing this on the kitchen of the penthouse. When you enter, they have a bar kitchenette to the left, and that was there. Yes.
But when you came to the penthouse after Amber had texted you, whether it was that night or the next day, you saw this in the kitchen. Is that correct? Painted?
Lack of foundation.
And so you do recall being there that evening?
I do recall being there. You know, my only concern with all of this is that was it the day before or during another incident. But it says, if my text said I was there the night before, then I was there the night before.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to look at what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 9. Do you recognize what is depicted in this photo?
Well, it's a bed. It looks like, I mean, it's a very tight picture of the bed, but it's a bed.
And do you recall seeing this the night of December 15 with the broken part of the bed?
Upstairs, yes.
Okay. And when you say upstairs, what do you mean?
Well, her bed, the bedroom was upstairs.
And the downstairs had the kitchen with the writing. Do you remember where the other property that you saw was? Was that downstairs or upstairs? The property that was damaged. Was that upstairs or downstairs?
Downstairs.
All right, and just so I'm clear, you recall damage to the bed, is that correct?
And asked and answered.
On December 16, 2015, did you return to Amber Heard's penthouse?
Yes.
And why did you come to Amber Heard's penthouse on December 16?
It was the James Corden show. She had an appearance, so I came back to work.
And when you arrived at the penthouse on December 16, please describe for me what you observed about Amber Heard's face and any injuries.
When I came to the penthouse on December 16 to do Amber's makeup, she had injuries. She had two light, like, I don't know how, I don't know, I mean, I'm not a medical expert, I don't know how I would describe them, but it could have looked like somebody had headbutted her lightly, so she had a discoloration here, under both eyes, and on the bridge of the nose. And she had what I would call a split lip or something on the lip, like a gash or a split lip.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to look at what has been marked as exhibit number 11. Do you recognize this photo as being Amber Heard's head?
Yes.
Okay. And could you please describe for me what this photo is showing?
It's showing a chunk of missing hair.
And what, if anything, did you observe on December 16 about Amber Heard missing a chunk of hair?
I remember this because she showed it to us, and I looked at it.
Okay. And can you describe what is depicted right along her scalp there?
I don't know.
Do you recall that there was some bruising along the scalp and some pus, for lack of a better word?
I don't recall.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as exhibit number 14. Do you recognize the person in this photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
This is Amber Heard.
Okay. And were you just described what you saw on the 16th with respect to Amber Heard's injuries. Does this accurately depict what you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Exhibit 16. Again, do you recognize the person in this photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
Amber Heard.
Okay. And does this picture reflect the injuries that you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you to take a look at one more of those, and that is Exhibit 17. And I'm going to ask again, Ms. Iglesias, do you recognize the person in this picture, and maybe to try to move it along, is it Amber Heard?
Yes.
Okay. And does this reflect what you saw as well on December 16, 2015?
I mean, that's three pictures with very different lights, but yes.
Now, do you also recall there being an injury to Amber Heard's lip?
Correct.
And Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 19, and do you recognize the person in this photograph as Amber Heard?
Yes.
And does this picture accurately reflect what you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, could you please describe what you did by way of makeup to prepare Amber Heard for the James Corden show on December 16, 2015?
Yes. We covered, I just did makeup, but just a little heavier where it needed. So we covered, the discoloration, the bruises with a little slightly heavier concealer, one that has a little more of a peach undertone, which I would normally don't use on Amber, but peach do cancel blue. So I did that under the eyes, and although Amber always, has a red lip, is one of the signature look, I remember clearly talking that we had no other option that night but then to use a red blood, like a really red lipstick to, make sure we could cover up the injuries on the lip.
And were you able to cover all of the injuries with the makeup that you applied and as you just described?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, if you could look at what has been marked as exhibit number 22, do you recognize Amber Heard in that picture?
Yes.
Okay. And is this the picture of her, is this a picture of her that evening, December 16, 2015 on the James Corden show?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe on the difference in Amber Heard's demeanor before the show and then on the show?
That she had the ability to, turn it on, that she, the ability to do her job and perform how she was supposed to perform on the show.
And prior to Amber going on the show and while you were working with her on her makeup, how would you describe Amber's mood and demeanor?
Angry, sad, a little erratic, I think through waves of emotions,
Do you recall someone named Ms. McMillan having any role in helping to prepare Amber Heard for that James Corden show that night, December 16?
Yes.
What do you recall?
Samantha was a stylist. Samantha was there the day of the James Corden show, as she was always there to get her ready before an appearance or a show.
And did Samantha work on Amber before or after you were applying the makeup?
I don't know if she worked on Amber, but when I entered the Penthouse 5, Samantha was there with Amber. So Samantha was there before I entered the penthouse.
And do you recall whether Samantha was hugging Amber when you came in?
I recall opening the penthouse. So there's two penthouses. There's the penthouse where she gets ready. So Amber at the penthouse where Samantha gets her ready, where all Amber's clothes is. If I recall properly, that's the penthouse that I enter first, just to say hi before I would go set up in the other penthouse. And my recollection is when I enter, Amber was crying, looked pretty upset on Samantha's shoulder, or they were like, I don't know if hugging is the right way, but they would definitely had a moment where they were together and Amber looked really upset.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask just a couple more questions about the makeup that you applied on Amber on December 16, 2015 for the James Corden show. I think you said that you had applied some concealer and that you had some peach undertones with it to cancel out some blue. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
I was asking about, I wrote down that you said that you had applied on Amber concealer, you had some peach undertones to cancel blue. Is that what you said?
Correct.
So what type of concealer did you apply to Amber? And if you use different color tones, can you please describe why you used the color tones you did?
I used a different kind of concealer that I would normally use on Amber, which I used a concealer that had peach undertone. Peach undertone concealer are more effective to cover any darkness of blue undertone than a normal concealer.
Do you know what type of makeup Amber Heard typically wore?
Objection,
Yes.
Dagan.
Can you please describe for me?
Yes, she's pretty natural. She has a concealer from a company called, she used to have a concealer from a company called Clé de Peau. Her makeup would be pretty simple, concealer and a little benefit tint that she used on her lips and she used on her cheeks. Very natural.
It had a natural look to it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But she did wear concealer and what you described, correct?
Do you mean in her daily life or that night?
In her daily life.
Yes, she has a concealer that she uses all the time, and she has a couple of products that she uses all the time, daily. Yes. Well, I mean daily. Yes, as far as I know.
And do you feel confident in what you described that you saw that day of Amber Heard's injuries? And I'm talking about December 16, 2015.
1,000%, without a doubt. Because I just don't remember, it's 5 years ago, I don't remember the exact date.
And could you describe Amber Heard's demeanor in those days before and after the filing for divorce and for the domestic violence restraining order?
An area of different emotion, definitely from sadness to not wanting to divorce to anger to being really upset to being really sad. So it was just a roller coaster of emotion that I think we were all there those couple of days to help navigate and go through it.
I take it from your response today, you still feel very emotional about this. It's very difficult for you, isn't it?
It's not difficult for me, no, but it just reminded me at the time how I felt, yes.
When did you first tell Ms. Heard that you were no longer interested in having her as a client and being friends with her?
That phone call, about a month ago.
How was it said?
Well, I just told Amber that, I wish her well and I just have no interest in continuing a relationship, whatever it's work-wise or friendship-wise.
But is there a specific reason other than the birth of your child and the postpartum issues that you described, both as a client and Ms. Iglesias? What was your impression of Mr. Depp when you first met him?
Lovely.
You thought he was lovely?
Yeah.
Was each of the, well, let me ask the backup question. Did you interact with Mr. Depp? How many times did you interact with Mr. Depp?
Through, you mean all in all?
Oh, yes. The entirety of your interactions. How many were there? Approximately.
5, maybe less than 10. Maybe, yeah.
And would you describe all your interactions with Mr. Depp as, quote, lovely?
Yes.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp act in a violent manner?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp yell at Ms. Heard?
No.
Did you ever see him kick Ms. Heard?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp throw an object at Ms. Heard?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp slap Ms. Heard?
No.
Punch her?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp kick Ms. Heard?
No.
Is it fair to say, Ms. Iglesias, that you never saw Mr. Depp be physically abusive towards Ms. Heard?
Correct.
And you never saw Mr. Depp cause any injuries to Ms. Heard, correct?
Did I ever saw him causing any injuries? No.
And so any injuries that you claim to have seen on Ms. Heard, you don't know one way or another how they were caused, correct?
Correct.
The only source of information that you have is Ms. Heard's own words, correct?
Correct.
Did you hear Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard having a fight on the phone?
I was there. I was present in the room.
But just to confirm, could you hear Mr. Depp's voice?
No.
So fair to say that the only voice you heard was Ms. Heard's, correct?
Correct.
And so you don't know what Mr. Depp said to Ms. Heard on that phone call, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall any other occasions where you witnessed a fight between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, or heard about an incident or a fight between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, other than the three that we've now discussed?
I would say every time. I would say that during my friendship with Amber, before she filed for divorce, which, I mean, timeline, I don't know, a year, maybe a year and a half, it was always some conflict, some fight, some physical fights, some verbal fights, some kind of problem, it always was a problematic, it was very consuming for me. It was all consuming about that relationship. It was a very consuming friendship, and hence that's why I decided not to continue it.
But you yourself, Ms. Iglesias, didn't witness any of these altercations, fights, arguments, correct, between Mr. Depp? I think you testified that you interacted with Mr. Depp less than 10 times. When you did interact with Mr. Depp, was Ms. Heard present each of those times?
All of those times.
Did you find him particularly loving towards Ms. Heard?
No, not particularly, no.
And during these interactions with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, at that time, you were aware that Mr. Depp allegedly was abusing Ms. Heard, correct?
Well, most of the interaction that I had was towards the end of 2015, right? I'm assuming, so I was not fully aware yet of, I guess, the seriousness of their fight, if I can say so. I think, you know, most of the time I saw them together was towards the end of December, before December 15. So Thanksgiving, that time, and Amber's, I think, birthday, I'm getting into the date. So the few times that I saw Mr. Depp was before I understood the seriousness of the fight.
Understanding, again, came from Ms. Heard only, correct?
Well, Ms. Heard and some of her friends, yes.
Who were some of her friends?
Rocky, Rachel Pennington, Io, Twillett, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Josh, Drew, the people that were leaving, her sister, Whitney. Those were the core group.
You said you spent Thanksgiving with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. Was that in Thanksgiving, November 2015?
Yes, correct, because they were divorced by May 2016, so yes.
How would you describe that evening?
Awkward,
Why?
because Marilyn Manson was there.
Did you know Marilyn Manson?
No, but it just was an awkward Thanksgiving sitting there. It was quite intimate. So sitting, yeah, it was just awkward. He's just an awkward being, and it's just awkward to be around. So it was an awkward evening.
Do you recall Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard having any type of disagreement or fight that evening?
Disagreement, maybe, like a disagreement.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there was, you know, it was such a small, intimate surrounding that you pick up on things, and so I could tell that it was awkward. It was just awkward. I think Mr. Depp and Mr. Manson disappeared for a while, and everybody was at the table, so they was wondering where they were. It was just awkward.
And you're pretty sure they had a fight because Ms. Heard told you after the fact that they had a fight, correct? Because you did not witness Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard having any type of fight the evening of Thanksgiving, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Iglesias, do you have an independent recollection of going to the penthouse in downtown Los Angeles on December 15th, 2015?
I have an independent. I have an independent recollection of going to the penthouse before one of the incident. And at the time, I couldn't recall if it was the day before the James Corden or the day before the phone incident. So and that is what I made sure I needed to remember, that it was the day before December 16th. Yes. Does that make sense? So I knew I had come a day before, a day before one of the two biggest fights that, and I wasn't sure if it was that day or that day, but it was December 15th.
And sitting here today, you're still not sure if you went to the penthouse on December 15th, 2015, or if it was the day before the May incident in 2016. And when you went to the penthouse on December 15th, I believe you testified before that you didn't see any injuries on Amber Heard that evening, correct?
Sorry, I don't recall seeing any injuries on Amber that night.
Do you recall if Ms. Pennington was at the penthouse that evening?
Yes.
Do you recall if anybody else was at the penthouse that evening?
I don't recall.
But you do remember Ms. Heard being there and Ms. Pennington, correct?
Correct.
All right. Did you take any photographs of Ms. Heard the evening of December 15, 2016?
No.
Do you recall being present when any photographs of Ms. Heard were taken on December 15, 2015?
I don't recall.
Do you remember being present when photographs of Ms. Heard's injuries were taken on December 16th, 2015?
No.
And did you take any pictures of Ms. Heard and her injuries on December 16th, 2015?
No.
So I don't want to take up the time of showing you all the photographs Ms. Bredehoff showed you earlier today, but there were a number of exhibits. I think I marked them as exhibits 14 through 20 that you were shown earlier this morning. Just to confirm, you didn't take any of those photographs, correct?
Not on my phone, not with my phone, and I do not recall taking Amber's or Rocky's phone to take those pictures. No, definitely not with my phone. I do not recall taking physically myself those pictures. No, I don't recall.
Would it be normal for Ms. Heard to have makeup on her face before you arrived to do her makeup ahead of an appearance?
It would be normal for Amber to have concealer on, a little of that tint there, yes, because it is quite normal for Amber to wash her face. She always likes to wash the face before the makeup with the product that she likes, do a toner, so it wouldn't be abnormal for her to have a little makeup before and then wash her face and start clean.
But you don't remember one way or another whether Ms. Heard had a fresh face with toner and moisturizer on when you arrived on December 16th, 2015, correct?
No, I do not. I don't recall.
Would she usually wash her face and go through that process in front of you?
Yes, I mean in front of me in her bathroom, but we were close, so it wouldn't be abnormal for me to be chit-chatting with her while she cleaned her face. And I don't think specifically in front of me or not in front of me, but yeah, I mean she would wash her face in the bathroom, which is adjacent to where we get her ready.
And I want to be really specific. So based on your best recollection, what injuries did you see on Ms. Heard on December 16th, 2015?
Amber had a slight discoloration on both eyes and on the top of the bridge of the nose, and and I do believe the right eye had a little more of a gash right there. It wasn't that strong, it wasn't that swollen, but it was definitely some blue and yellow discoloration there, mainly on the inner corner and a little more here. And then she had on the right lip, as I said earlier, I'm not sure the exact medical term, but it looked like a split lip or like a gash here.
Did you ever see Miss Heard's lip bleed on December 15th or December 16th?
I don't recall.
But you remember that it was not bleeding on December 16th when you were applying the makeup, correct?
When I was applying the makeup, correct.
How about before you were applying the makeup? Do you recall it bleeding?
I don't recall.
And I think you just described it as either a gash or a split lip.
I don't know what would be the medical term for it. I don't know what kind of injury would have caused this. I'm not a medical expert nor forensic expert, but it was slightly swollen. And by the way, you can see it in that video. So it's crazy to me, but it was slightly swollen. And there was either a gash or a scab. No, not a scab, but it was swollen with some kind of cut.
Do you recall Miss Heard ever having a cold sore on her lips?
No.
You said there was slight discoloration under both eyes. Was there swelling under both eyes as well?
We'll clarify swelling. Maybe very little, but it was mainly discoloration at two. I recall mainly discoloration, like a bruise. Maybe there was a little tiny swelling on one of the eye that was a little more injured than the other, but not huge swelling, no.
I believe your testimony earlier today was that he lightly headbutted her. Is that correct?
I wasn't there. I don't know if he lightly or not lightly headbutted her.
That was your testimony, that it appeared as if she had been, quote, lightly headbutted. Do you remember saying that earlier today?
Then maybe I was misquoted. It's not my position to say how headbutted she was or anything. And maybe I'm misquoted.
Okay. And did she show you the hair that was missing?
She showed us, me and the hairdresser, the hole where the hair was missing on top of the head.
And was Miss McMillan there as well?
No, Samantha McNair was really never when we get ready. So it was two separate things, and Samantha never really comes up when we get ready, no.
But just to confirm, these injuries, right, that you saw on Miss Heard on December 16th, 2015, you don't know how they were caused, correct?
Correct.
And so any information you have about how the cause of these injuries came from Miss Heard only?
From December 16th, correct.
Well, any injuries other than Miss Heard and her friends, you never witnessed Mr. Depp being violent or abusive towards Miss Heard and causing any injuries.
Correct.
So let's talk about the makeup that you actually used to conceal these injuries on her face on December 16th. I believe you testified you used a concealer with a peach undertone.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have training and experience dealing with injuries or covering up bruising on people? Do you have any specific experience or education?
Specific experience, I have experience in doing bruises and cover bruises for special effect. Yeah, I mean, throughout my career, I have created bruises, and I also have covered bruises for, with models or real life things, whatever it is. So yeah, I have experience in covering some bruises, yes.
How about swelling? Same question.
I mean, it's a little harder to cover swelling. That would be maybe, try to bring the swelling down. Covering it up would be harder.
And how about cuts?
Yeah.
Specifically as it relates to Ms. Heard's makeup look on December 16th, do you recall what foundation you used?
The brand?
you probably don't remember the brand, but do you recall the shade that you used?
How would I? No, it's 5 years ago. Absolutely not.
Do you recall?
No.
But you do have a specific recollection of using a peach undertone concealer.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because Amber always had in her bag, we have the same concealer. She has a concealer from a brand called Clear to Pro. And it's a specific shade. It's beige. Beige was Amber's color for under her eyes, period. So the day, December 16, I didn't use beige. There's another concealer that has a little more peach in there and orange. It's called Honey, from the same family, and I use that instead. And I think I have a wheel that is a bruise wheel that has different colors, and you pick up the color to gently touch up any darkness.
Did you make a different choice for her overall look other than the concealer as a result of the injuries that you saw on her face on December 16th?
Not a different choice, but I remember we specifically, I know you read it before, we had a red lip that was not uncommon for her. We know she has a signature red lip, so it's not suddenly it was, oh my gosh, she has a red lip. But I remember that day I specifically structure my makeup. There's a couple of things we do with Amber. We do a smoky eye and a nude lip or a red lip, and I remember specifically thinking of my makeup about we needed to highlight there to try to not draw attention there, and the red lips was our only option to cover that red cut that was there. So that I remember very specifically thinking that we had to have a red lip, sharp brows, and construct the makeup to take away from here. So basically, it's not going to mean nothing to you guys, but just basically a lot of highlight up here to kind of not focus on this. I remember talking about it very clearly.
And forgive my ignorance, but what did you do to cover up the cut on the lip other than apply a red lip?
A red lip. Okay. A red lip. It is swollen. I can see it in the video on the James Corden show. So her lips was swollen. It was big on that side. You can see it. There's nothing I can do about that. But we did a really dark red lip to match that red gash or cut, whatever that was there.
Do you recall Ms. Heard being hindered as a result of the injury on her lip? And when I say hindered, I mean, did she have trouble opening her mouth widely, or, did she complain about it hurting or splitting open and bleeding? Do you recall any of that?
I don't recall.
And again, just to confirm, on December 15th, 2015, you don't recall seeing any injuries, including a split lip on Amber Heard, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall having any specific conversation with the hairstylist that was doing Ms. Heard's hair on December 16th, 2015, as it related to the abuse that Ms. Heard was describing for you?
Yeah, yes. We talked a bit about it, yes.
And what do you recall about that conversation?
I think everybody was a little like, whoa, shit, okay. I think everybody was a little surprised. Everybody was a little like not knowing how to move forward with it. But we talked, as I said, when Amber was in the chair and Adia was behind her and I was in front of her, I recall the three of us having this conversation, and I recall Adia showing me the hole there.
But just to confirm, you don't know how that chunk of hair was missing from Ms. Heard's head. You don't know what caused that chunk of hair to be missing, correct?
I don't know it, correct.
You don't have any personal knowledge, I should say, as to how that chunk of hair came to be missing from her head.
Well, I did not witness it, correct.
Alex, may I please have you bring up Depp 9? Ms. Iglesias, you've testified previously that you see, watching the video clip, right, you see Ms. Heard's, you see the swollen lip and you see bruising
Yeah. I see. I've known that face. I know that face so well. I've done it so many times. I can tell where the bruises are, and I can tell where the swollen lip is. Correct.
So, Ms. Iglesias, do you mind please identifying for me, does this photograph accurately depict Ms. Heard on the James Corbin show on December 16th, 2015?
Yes.
But can you describe for me where you see bruising on Ms. Heard's face?
Well, I didn't say I saw bruise, but I saw the discoloration. I can see my makeup. So I see the discoloration on the right eye, just right under. I see that little dent there. And also, I mean, this is a picture that is, this is not a really accurate picture. She's sideways. The light is one way, but yes, there's better pictures that you can see. But if you give me the mouth, I will show you. But there's other still picture when you can see the split lip better, or the swollen lip. So I mean, I can see there's better pictures where you can see that side of her lip is swollen. This here.
And when you're pointing, for the record, you're pointing to the right side of Ms. Heard's lip, correct?
Correct. It's here. It's nothing. But as I said, there's better pictures. She's sideways. There's better pictures where you can see what I feel you can see better. But
It might be the same photograph.
yeah, she's still sideways.
But Ms. Iglesias, this is your testimony that you believe you can see swelling on the right side of Ms. Heard's lip.
Yes.
Okay. Do you see any bruising or concealed bruising under her eyes?
Well, I mean, I know I've concealed those bruises, so yeah, so I can see them because I know I did it, but so that's neither here or there, but yeah, I mean, I can see them just on the eyes, on the right eyes, I can see the little gash right there. And I can, all that darkness, right, I mean, I don't have the mask anymore, but all that darkness right there, that is not eyeshadow. And that is neither dark circle for not sleeping. This is part of the little, the injury is showing through.
Do you see any discoloration or bruising on the bridge of her nose?
I do not. No, I must have done a great job then.
Do you recall anything about Ms. Heard's appearance when you first encountered her in Coachella Valley?
No, I don't recall.
Did you notice any injuries on Ms. Heard?
I don't recall.
Do you recall Ms. Heard discussing any abuse that she had sustained the night of her birthday on April 21st, 2016 by Mr. Depp?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
I recall there was a fight, there was I don't remember. I don't exactly recall the fight. I know there was a fight and there was some problem. That's why they were late coming back to Coachella's. I don't recall exactly what she told me, but there was some problem the night before, yes.
But you don't remember seeing any injuries on Ms. Heard after her birthday dinner in April of 2016, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall seeing any injuries on Ms. Heard's face at that dinner on May 24th, 2016?
I don't recall.
Do you recall Ms. Heard's general demeanor at the dinner on May 24th, 2016?
What I remember about that dinner is that she was, and I'll tell you why I remember this clearly, because she was very distraught and she was very confused if she should file or not for divorce. And she was really sad and upset and angry and all of it. And I remember that because that night I actually physically took her phone. So she should not, so that if Johnny tried to reach out to her again, she wouldn't have a phone that night, and she would go through the divorce tomorrow, the next day. So I remember physically having her phone, and when I dropped them back at the penthouse, she said, "Keep my phone, so if you contact me, I won't know, I won't cave, and I will file for divorce tomorrow. So I went home in my house with her phone. And that's why I remember. That's why it's sticking in my mind. And then the next morning, and you can see in those texts, she said, I need my phone. And then I had to drive to the penthouse and give her her phone back. And at the time, that day, I'm assuming she filed for divorce, and that day, the whole circus started.
And you believe that Ms. Heard should go through with the divorce, correct?
Correct.
And that was based on what exactly, Ms. Iglesias?
On what she told me on her recollection of her marriage.
I think you testified earlier that Amber's practice was to wear concealer, some foundation, moisturizer, things of that nature. Do you have any recollection that Amber strayed from that and did not wear makeup during the week of May 21st, 2016?
No.
Do you have any recollection that week of thinking, oh my goodness, Amber Heard isn't wearing her makeup this week?
No.
So do you know whether Amber Heard took any steps to reduce her swelling during this, in preparation for the James Corden show?
Yes, she took arnica, and we had an arnica gel. I always have arnica gel in my kit anyway, and she had arnica gel. She used arnica gel and some ice.
And what does arnica gel do with respect to swelling?
I use arnica gel in my kit to bring any swelling area of my client's face down.
And how does that typically work? What's your experience?
It just brings the swelling down. I mean, not drastically, but it helps with the swelling a little bit.
All right.
Yes, Your Honor, we have another video.
Okay, if you could approach for a moment, let me just.
Certainly.
All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, we're going to call Christy Sexton, and this is by video deposition as well.
All right.
That'll be the last one for the day.
Okay, thank you.
Some preliminaries. Ms. Sexton, why don't you state your whole name for the record and your current address?
Christina Lisette Sexton, Queensland, Australia.
For how long, Ms. Sexton, had you lived in Australia?
I've been at that address since July 2017. There was a transitionary period. I met my husband in December of 2015. So 16 and 17 decisions on which country we were going to move to and such. So I did not establish residency here until July, and then began all my paperwork subsequently when we were married in October of 2017.
So I take it from your last answer, Ms. Sexton, that Australia was the lucky winner for which country you and your husband would choose to live in. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, indeed.
And do you currently have a job? Do you currently work right now in Australia?
Yes, I'm an acting coach.
When was it, to the best of your recollection, that she took a class that you were a TA in?
I believe it was sometime in 2009.
For how long did you remain Amber Heard's primary or exclusive acting coach?
I don't know about exclusive. We don't have any sort of exclusivity contracts. She may work with other coaches. The last time we worked on a project together would be Aquaman, so 2017. I don't know about exclusive. We don't have any sort of exclusivity contracts. She may work with other coaches. The last time we worked on a project together would be Aquaman, so 2017.
Okay, so the first movie, or the first TV series, I should say, that you recall working on as an acting coach with Amber Heard was the Playboy Club.
Yes.
It was 2011.
Yes.
I take it from what you just described that although the frequency varied, it's fair to say, is it not, that you saw Ms. Heard many, many, many times during the period between 2010 and 2017?
Oh, yes.
Would it be fair to say that you saw Ms. Heard during this 7-year period more than 100 times?
Easily, yes.
And when you say easily, do you think it's also fair to say that you saw her more than 200 times?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to go up another 100. Same answer for 300 times?
Yeah. As I said, when I would see her, it would be multiple times a week in preparation for a project.
When's the last time that you had a session with Amber Heard as her primary acting coach?
Mid-2017.
During that early period when she lived on Orange Avenue, how would you describe, Amber Heard as an actor?
She was really focused on moving to the next level of her career and really stretching herself as an actor. Which is why she started coaching so much at that time and initially even went to classes. So she was really driven to do a lot of work and kind of mine out everything that we could from the text and go over things a lot. So she was very driven as an actor to, I would say, get to the next phase of her career.
We're looking at Sexton 1. Refresh your recollection as to when that took place. That's the IMDb page.
Yes, it was either 2011 or 2012. If it's saying that it came out in 2011, then the premiere would have been in 2011, so yeah.
When was the next time you recall seeing Johnny or Mr. Depp?
I would say sometime in the middle of the following year.
So sometime in the middle of 2012, you think?
Yeah.
And where was that?
At her house on Orange. I remember seeing him quite a bit. In the early period.
Again, I'm focused on the early period. Did you have occasion to run into Mr. Depp at your coaching sessions with Amber later when she moved into Sweetser Avenue and then at the penthouse in downtown Los Angeles?
Yes, I did see him often at both Sweetser and the downtown house.
And over that period of time, did you observe changes in Mr. Depp's behavior?
Yeah, Johnny became, I would say, much darker as time went on. He was, like, figuratively and literally, he would sit in dark rooms. The art overall changed. Like, everything got much darker in the houses with, like, heavy, it was always a little, I don't know what the art form would be, dark, but it just, like, literally lighting would go down and big curtains would be everywhere, and he became much less talkative as time went on. I would see less and less of him personally. I would hear him in the house, but I would see less and less of him interaction-wise. And when I did, he wasn't very happy.
What would you hear him say on those occasions when you could hear him but not see him?
At different points in time, I heard different things. Sometimes it would just be him milling around the house. Sometimes it would be him having conversations with his team, bodyguards and stuff, or his friends that were over making music at the Sweetser location. Sometimes it was him and Amber fighting. Like, I was in his home, so I heard him quite a bit.
You said a couple of answers ago that from time to time you would hear Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard fighting. Can you, again, keeping in mind that it's a long time ago, can you describe what you heard?
I would say I would just hear a lot of him yelling. His voice would carry through kind of the halls of the house. And then, like, I remember one time in specific that I could hear Amber was trying to get out of the room, and then the door shut again, and then I could just hear muffled yelling on his part.
At the beginning of their relationship, once Ms. Heard has revealed to you that they were in fact in a relationship, did she talk to you about Mr. Depp's struggles with drugs and alcohol?
In the early parts of their relationship, she had said that he was sober. She was trying to support him in his sobriety. And then subsequently throughout the relationship, we would talk about his breaks in sobriety.
Based on your work as Ms. Heard's acting coach, primary acting coach, was it your understanding that Mr. Depp had opinions about what role Ms. Heard should take?
There were a couple of occasions where I actually heard Johnny say, why would you want to do that kind of role? My woman isn't going to play that kind of role. Stuff like that I heard a few times from him over the course of time.
Other than saying that hearing Mr. Depp say he didn't want his woman playing a whore, did you ever hear him use any other language like that about the kind of roles that Ms. Heard was being offered? To focus you in, Ms. Sexton, I'm talking about the period when Amber and Johnny were together in a relationship until you stopped being her acting coach in 2017. And I'm focusing in on what you recall hearing from Mr. Depp about what roles he thought Ms. Heard should play.
As I said, he would be sitting, initially when she lived in the Orange location, sometimes he would be nearby. It was a fairly small house, and he would be nearby and kind of earshot. So there were times that he was kind of just disparaging. That's a shitty role. Why would you do that? That kind of thing. But he wasn't super negative then. Later on, as it went on, he was very vocal about the negative terms. Like I said, he called it a whore part or a trash part, or a piece of shit, all sorts of things like that. Generally pretty negative if it was something he didn't want her to do.
Did the number of roles that Ms. Heard auditioned for change during the time that she was involved with Mr. Depp?
Yes, it did. It was decreasing as it went, and there would be stretches of time where she wasn't auditioning at all or working on anything at all.
During the time that Mr. Depp and Ms. Hurd were together, did you observe changes in their relationship over time?
Yeah, early on they were incredibly lovey-dovey and passionate and always together in a positive way. They were very playful and friendly. And then I would see less and less of them together, and I would hear a lot of muffled arguments through the walls. And when I did see him, sometimes the balance would shift. It went from being like a normal couple to very tension-filled, especially those last few months that they were together. And yeah.
Did they, was there a, withdrawn? Did the number of times that Ms. Hurd was late for or canceled sessions with you change as her relationship with Mr. Depp went on in time?
Yeah, as I said earlier, Amber was never late when we worked at the studio. And then as it went on, I began having to actually build in a cushion of an hour around her appointment. It started out just an extra 15 minutes here and there because she'd be late coming downstairs, or they'd be discussing, or he had to talk to her at that moment in time. And eventually, as the relationship progressed and the fighting got heavier, I would have to build in time because she'd be sobbing at the beginning of sessions and we couldn't work until we got her together. Yeah, I ended up having to do a lot of cushion time around her just so that we could actually get something accomplished because she was often very upset.
Did you have occasion to observe Ms. Hurd crying, naturally, not acting, when you had coaching sessions with her during the time that she was together romantically with Mr. Depp?
I would say the last year they were together, probably 80-90% of our sessions began with her crying. That would be increasing as it went on. Ironically, she has a little difficulty crying acting-wise, so which a lot of us do. And so, yeah, we would have to work when we were doing it acting-wise, but it was a lot towards the end there, a lot of crying sessions.
Based on your testimony here, Ms. Sexton, is the crying that she did in a role different than the crying you observed so often in the last year of her relationship with Mr. Depp?
Yes, inherently acting crying is very different, unless somebody is working in what's called method, in which that's an entirely different thing where they focus on their own stuff. So she's not a method actor, so it would be completely different.
Speaking for your own self, Ms. Sexton, how did you react when you saw Amber at these sessions crying the way you described it?
I have a caretaker personality, so I would prioritize taking care of the person in front of me over doing work, which is why I ended up building in all that extra time, because I cared about her as a human and I wanted to be there for her in as much as I could as a friend. So there's no point on working on something if someone isn't fully there or they're upset. It's more important to deal with the person and take care of them than work.
And during those sessions, particularly in the last year when you saw Ms. Hurd crying so often, what was your understanding of the reason for her tears?
I would hear them fighting and then hear her come in, and she would be a wreck after she came in. I couldn't make out what they were saying, and I personally wasn't trying to listen to their fights, so I would just hear the sounds of the screaming. And her usually, you could tell she would open the door and try to get him to be quiet, and then it'd go back to him yelling. And so that would directly occur before she would come down and be upset and trying to pull herself together.
What do you recall seeing her stage she told you that they were fighting about?
I was witness to some of those. He didn't want her going out without any sort of security or any team. He didn't want her going and doing things just on her own.
You described earlier in your testimony, Ms. Sexton, what Amber Heard was like when you first met her. During this period when she was involved with Mr. Depp, and particularly toward the end of their relationship, did her behavior change?
Over the course of time, she became more and more of a hermit, only leaving the house when she had to. Again, as I said earlier, literally the houses became darker with the curtains drawn all the time. I remember one time in particular when she was living at the Eastern Columbia that we went downstairs to get a slice of pizza. I think there were 4 of us, and Amber gave a homeless kid down there some money, and we helped him get to the bus stop, and we came back up, and Johnny yelled at her about going out, and that she knew better than to be going out at night and that kind of thing. And when we tried to kind of be like, it's fine, we got pizza downstairs at the building across the street, then he just started screaming and getting really angry, so I made my way out.
What about her weight? Did you notice any changes during that period in her weight? Just to be clear, Ms. Sexton, I'm asking about the time that she was involved with Mr. Depp.
So Amber is one of those people that loses weight when she's stressed out. So she would drop weight and look skeletal at certain points in time. I remember right before their wedding, she had lost a significant amount of weight to the point that I was asking her if she was eating regularly. So she's always been fit, but she would drop down and get a little gaunt if she was super stressed out.
And in that last year that she was involved with Mr. Depp, you know changes in her weight?
Yeah, she lost a significant amount of weight, and I noticed it specifically because I had been in Australia doing a film, and then when I came back, so I'd been in Australia since December, I came back in February, and she looked, she was skin and bones. Like she was much thinner than she normally was at that point. So I know during that time period that she had lost a lot of weight and she was very gaunt.
Now, I'm going to shortly move on to specific incidents. But for now, Ms. Sexton, I want to speak generally about things you observed and saw. And the first question I have in that regard is, during the time that you were Amber Heard's acting coach and she was involved with Mr. Depp, did you observe injuries on Ms. Heard?
When she came back from Australia, there were a lot of like little red marks on her arms that looked like freshly healing things. Skin, like red marks on her skin, sorry, on her arms that I saw. And then subsequently I would see like bruises that look like arms being grabbed or wrists. Then I saw that all towards the end.
Did there come a time when you accompanied Amber Heard and Johnny Depp to Hicksville, California?
Yes, I went to Hicksville for Johnny's birthday celebration with them.
And in your own words, can you tell me about that trip and what happened chronologically?
We arrived at Hicksville and we had made kind of like a barbecue and drinks as we were having a lovely time. Johnny was playing guitar and singing. And then as the night went on, like around sundown, they started passing around a bag of mushrooms and a bag of white powder. I didn't even partake in the alcohol because I had had surgery a few months before, so I was the only one stone cold sober. Then I went to bed early, and while my friend and I were in our trailer, and we heard the fighting happening, Johnny screaming, and a commotion. We didn't come out of our trailer, and then the quieting down, and everyone being like, "Oh, it's okay." The bodyguards, I heard them running over there, and then the next morning when we got up, the group was talking about what had happened that night. And then I kind of left that conversation and went to the trailer to check on Amber. And I saw the completely torn apart trailer. Johnny was apologizing for what he had done, and he was instructing his bodyguards to just pay it off. Let's just take care of it. And I stayed with Amber. She was really shaken up.
The next day, can you describe for me what the trailer where Amber and Johnny were staying looked like?
The inside was in shambles. I remember seeing a light hanging off the wall. There was broken stuff everywhere. Dishes, it looked like, or not dishes, like the wood was broken. Things were hanging off the wall. It was in shambles on the inside.
And that next day, I think you said that you had occasion to see Mr. Depp. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did he look that next day when you saw the trailer?
He looked very worried. He was apologizing. He was saying he would take care of it. He was like, "Don't worry about it, babe. We're going to get this taken care of." And Amber was really like closed off and quiet, and he just kept kind of apologizing to her over and over again, and then telling his bodyguards to just take care of it, just get it done, whatever it is, just pay for it. And then he went off to go have that conversation with them.
What was Mr. Depp saying that next day when he was apologizing?
I just remember him saying, "I'm so sorry, babe. I'll take care of it. I know this is bad, but I can take care of it. I'm sorry I did this," that kind of thing.
I think you said, testified this earlier, but I want to make sure the record is clear. Did you recall Mr. Depp using the word monster that day?
I heard him on different times making apologies that he said, "I'm sorry I turned into a monster." I just remember a profuse amount of apologies. I don't know if that time in particular had that verbiage.
Anything else about Hicksville that you remember that you haven't told me about?
I mean, the only thing I stated that I did see him eat the mushrooms. I saw him holding the white bag. I don't know what he did with that, the bag of white powder. Everyone except for me was drinking, and different people were partaking in different drugs at that time. So I didn't keep track of that. Yeah, I don't know anything else that I can recall.
Okay. I want to go forward to another incident, and that is the day of April 21, 2016, which I'll represent to you, was Amber Heard's 70th birthday. Did you have occasion to see Amber Heard that day?
Yes, I attended the party.
And again, you say you attended the party. Can you describe the party you attended, who was there?
The party was happening in one of the penthouses, the one that they didn't live in. It's where they did most of their art, and we did most of our coaching. And I don't remember the number of that one. And there were several friends of Amber's there, and we spent the first couple hours waiting for Johnny. And then eventually Amber said, just let's not stop waiting for him, let's just start. So we went out to the balcony to start dinner, and that's when Johnny finally came down, and he was severely inebriated when he came down. And they, Brandon, I don't remember his last name, it starts with an M, escorted him, kind of helped him stay stable. And we went to the table and we started dinner, and Johnny and I was sitting 2 seats away from Johnny. Johnny and Amber clearly were very tense and had been, I don't know what they had been doing, but they were very tense, and he would try to kind of touch her and she would shy away. And then Rocky was trying to change the tone of the party because it had really gotten very somber at that point. And she asked everyone to kind of say their favorite story about Amber. And as we went around the table, everyone shared their stories. And when we got to Johnny, he started talking about that he remembered when he first met her, the imprint of Amber's ass on his couch were his words. And it just all kind of took a turn from there. She was clearly embarrassed. She asked him to stop, and he kept telling the story. And it got really awkward and uncomfortable at that point, and never really recovered any sort of jovial energy. We ate, and then I left shortly thereafter.
I forgot to ask you this question about Hicksville. The day after, when you saw Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in the wrecked trailer, did Ms. Heard seem embarrassed?
Yeah, as I said, Amber was very closed off. She was very quiet. She had said, "Don't come in. I don't want you to see this." So, yeah, she seemed very embarrassed.
Now, switching forward to Amber's 30th birthday party, I think you testified that Mr. Depp seemed inebriated when he arrived. What's your basis for saying that?
He was slurring his words and wobbly on his feet. He ran into a couple things, which is when Brandon came over and kind of locked arms with him to kind of help him stand up.
You said you saw her later with a healing bruise. Where do you recall seeing that healing bruise?
On her cheek. It was on her right cheek. I think it was right, yeah.
Do you know how long after the incident that you just discussed with the cell phone you saw Ms. Heard and her face?
It was a few days later, but I couldn't tell you exactly when. I mean, everyone heals at a different rate. I could still see kind of the yellow and stuff in there, so.
When was the last time you spoke to Amber? You said August of this year?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you spoke to her specifically? Do you remember?
We went over it was sometime in August. I can narrow it down to August, to have wine, have a glass of wine and catch up, because like I said, I think it had been 2 years since we'd physically seen each other.
Both times when you met with Ms. Heard in August of this year, did you meet with her at her house?
Yes.
Did Ms. Heard mention any of the allegations that Mr. Depp is making against her in relation to this case when you met with her?
Only to talk to the attorneys about it.
When you say only to talk to the attorneys about it, what specifically did Ms. Heard tell you?
Like she said, would you be willing to sit down and talk to my attorneys about everything that you witnessed? And then afterwards, after I kind of talked about it all, it felt really intense to me, and I felt incredibly guilty.
Was it during one of these 2 times that you met with Ms. Heard in August of this year that Ms. Heard told you for the first time that Mr. Depp had allegedly raped her with a bottle in Australia?
Yeah, she did talk about the bottle then, yeah.
Was it the first meeting that you had with Ms. Heard in August of this year that she mentioned that?
No, it was after, like, I had come to see her and had a wine night and catch up, and then after I had talked to the attorneys, after we had a good cry, we were talking more about what had happened, and she was saying how she didn't even tell me everything, and yeah, that's when it came out.
about the bottle incident in Australia where she claims Mr. Depp penetrated her with it. Before your deposition, your first deposition in this case in August of 2019?
Yes. It was after I had talked to the attorneys.
After you had spoken to the attorneys informally, correct, at her house?
Yeah.
But it was before you were formally deposed in this case on, I believe it was August 30th, 2019.
Yes.
And just to confirm and make the record really clear, this was the first time Ms. Heard had told you that Mr. Depp had allegedly penetrated her with a bottle in Australia, correct?
Yeah, she had told me about the assaults with the bottle, being hit with the bottle and the broken glass and everything. And then she had told me about all that many times before. And then this time she started crying and sobbing and started telling me about the assault, the penetrative assault.
And when Ms. Heard told you about this alleged rape that occurred, did she know that you were going to be deposed by her attorney?
No, because they were all in the other room. And they didn't even tell me that they were like, we may have you for a deposition. And that's when I had said to them, if you're going to do that, I would appreciate it if you did it before I left the States. And they said, we may or may not need you. And it was a couple days later that they then sent me the contact and said, we are going to subpoena you.
And since you've known Ms. Heard, can you tell me how many times you spent maybe a significant amount of time with Mr. Depp?
I would say probably around like 10 or 20 times.
And of those 10 or 20 times that you saw Mr. Depp and spent maybe more significant time than him just passing through a room, how many times would you say he was or appeared to be sober?
Not many. If he was coming down to have a conversation, he was pouring a glass of whiskey or rolling a joint or having wine. It always seemed to me that he's not a social animal, if you will, and he would have a drink or a smoke in order to go talk to people, is what it felt like. So most of the time I saw him, it was that.
You would agree with me, though, Ms. Sexton, that someone getting a drink is different than someone appearing drunk, correct? For example, if it was his first drink of the day. So my question is a little bit more specific. Of the 10 or 20 times that you saw Mr. Depp, how many times did he appear inebriated? Not, holding a glass of whiskey or smoking a joint, but how many times did he appear inebriated to you?
I would say at least half, if not more.
How would you describe Mr. Depp's personality when he was or appeared sober versus when he appeared inebriated?
He was very quiet when he was sober, and before he would start drinking, he was very quiet. Almost a whisper, mumble most of the time. And then he would get very loud when he was inebriated, and he would go to like boisterous first and telling like cool stories and stuff, that kind of happy drunk, and then it would move into the loud, angry drunk.
When you say loud and angry drunk, did you witness Mr. Depp be angry when he was drunk?
A couple of times, yeah.
When was the first time you witnessed Mr. Depp appear to be angry and inebriated?
I couldn't tell you the first time per se. I have images in my head. I remember him like yelling and screaming, and the bodyguard coming over and being like, "Hey, boss, let's take this to another room."
Can you tell me as much as you can remember of that incident?
I remember being in the kitchen of that house, and he came down and he was yelling about something. Amber and I were having a conversation, and we were going to, I think we were going to work on something that day. It was later in the evening, or it was really dark in there. Like I said, sometimes they drew all the curtains. In my memory, it's very dark, and he was yelling and that older guy came and like scooped his arm around him and was like, all right, boss, let's take this to another place. Because he was inebriated. I could tell from the way he was talking, and he was just kind of yelling. And I don't recall what was happening. It all kind of happened very quickly. I don't recall what he was yelling about, or if it was even at anybody. He was just kind of down there and drunk, and he scooped him up.
You anticipated my questions, which were who was he yelling at and what was he yelling about. So you don't recall, is that correct?
No, I don't.
And you said the other instance that you remember of Mr. Depp appearing inebriated and being angry was at one of his penthouses in downtown LA, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What were the circumstances that you remember about that incident?
I remember one time he was mad that people were in the house because I had just gotten there. I don't even remember. There might have been like 2 people there or something. I don't remember. But yeah, he was storming up those stairs to his office bedroom area. And then Amber and I went to the other penthouse to work.
And in either incident, both at Sweetser and at the penthouse, when you saw Mr. Depp and he appeared inebriated and was angry and yelling, did you see him hit Ms. Heard at any point?
No, I did not see him hit her.
Did you see him kick Ms. Heard?
I did not see him kick her.
Did you see him throw something at Ms. Heard?
I saw him coming at her, and that's when the bodyguard stepped in, like coming towards her. But I did not, like, so throwing himself at, like, but I was not witness to him throwing objects at her.
When you say he was coming at her, are you describing the incident at Sweetser or at the penthouse?
Sweetser, he came in through that hallway, and we were sitting at, it was kind of like an island there, like, right in front of the fridge, and I was in front of the fridge, and he came in from there, was like coming at her, and then the bodyguard, like, came in and scooped him up.
This is the incident. You don't remember what Mr. Depp was yelling about or
Yeah.
what?
Yes.
But it appeared to you that Mr. Depp was coming at Ms. Heard.
Yeah.
Correct?
She was shaking and upset. It felt like something that had been going on for a while.
And all the time that you've known Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp, did you ever see Mr. Depp be violent towards Ms. Heard?
I never saw him hit her. I heard him use terminology, as I said before, and as I said, come at her, but I never saw him hit her. If I had, I would have called the cops, to be honest.
You never saw Mr. Depp throw anything at her, any objects at her, correct?
No, the only thing I saw was the aftermath. Like, I would see things broken afterwards. And like I said, in Hicksville, I heard the yelling and then saw the breaking and saw him apologizing for it. But I, with my own 2 eyes, did not see him physically break the stuff or throw the stuff.
When Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard went to Australia, did she tell you that she threw a bottle of vodka at him and that's what severed his finger?
No, she had told me that he had broken the bottle and cut himself with the bottle that he had broken.
When she told you that he had cut himself with the bottle he had broken, did she say that he had taken the bottle and cut off his finger, or that it was an accident and that his finger was severed from the broken bottle? Do you understand the distinction?
Yeah, she didn't say that he... She didn't indicate that he cut off, like, went purposely to cut it. What it seemed to me is that he had broken the bottle against something, and then he was doing things with the bottle, like shaking it around, and that he had cut himself from that. It didn't indicate that he had in any way purposely cut himself.
Do you recall Johnny ever saying something to you in a conversation with him later about his ability to pass insurance tests?
I remember a specific time when Amber still lived at Orange, and Amber was out with her girlfriends, and I had come over too early for the party, so it was just Johnny and I sitting there having some whiskey, and he was smoking cigars, and he was talking about that it was, I said something about, he said he had to get up early to do a test, and I was like, oh, don't you have any sort of, like, concern about that? And he's like, it's easy to fake insurance tests. That's why we do what we do. I was talking to him because another client of mine had to do an insurance test, and he was like, oh, you can fake a piss test, you can do this. And he just kind of went over a few different ways that it's easy to fake insurance tests and made a joke of it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the day today, so have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Again, do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay? Have a good evening. All right. Do you have any remote witnesses tomorrow that you need access for? Do you need a WebEx? You don't need a WebEx link?
Deposition designations and live witnesses.
Depositions and live witnesses. Okay. All right. That sounds good. All right. Everybody knows their homework, right? Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll see you in the morning.